Would have been
Well,
fine.
that's probably not the moment, but
Guys, I record stuff every couple of weeks in this type of setting and I never forget. But I just have told so many people that I am recording this session and that I will make it available to them afterwards that it was absolutely imperative that it happened today. Oh, I've seem to have got my transcript on as well. By accident. So that's hugely distracting. We can remove that immediately. Okay, well, I think we can get started. I will share my screen, but it's wonderful to see you all actually because it's quite short notice. So really appreciate you taking the time to come here today or stay there today to hear about this really important, exciting training program and focusing on the line managers today about how you can help your person. I don't know what to call them. I've called them team member. I've tried to call them managee, but that's just comes up with a wiggly line underneath, and I don't like that. So yeah, thanks very much for coming. I am Rachel Caswell. I'm an analyst at the strategy unit, and I also manage the Midlands Decision Support Network training and development program. And I'll be the one who's one of the facilitators of this training program, and I'm going to be the main contact for you as we do the training over the next couple of months. And this is Fraser Batty. Fraser, who are you?
I'm Fraser. I'm a principal at the strategy unit and have been with this leadership development program for analysts since the origins, and I'll say some more about that in a moment. By background, I'm a researcher and evaluator, but for the last 3 years, something like that, I've spent most of my time doing leadership development work, primarily on decision making, which you'll see is a huge component part of this program. I hang around with analysts enough that I don't totally feel like an absolute interloper, but I'm basically a numerate and rely upon Rachel and colleagues for any detailed knowledge about analysis, analytics, life as an analyst, all of those kinds of things. Yeah, and I'm part of most of the sessions.
Thanks, Fraser. So I've alluded to this, but why did we invite you here today? Well, we want you to help your team member succeed. We want them to get the most out of this training, which we've been running for a few years now. And this training will benefit themselves, and it will benefit the team. It'll benefit the organisation that you are part of on your system, and it'll benefit you as line managers as well. Certainly, absolutely certainly. And we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail. But first, let's just see what we're going to cover in the time we've got this afternoon. I'm going to be handing over to Ali in a minute or two. I think I mentioned it to you, Ali, to talk about the Southwest Decision Support Network, because that is why you are here. And I'll briefly mention the broader training delivery team, Fraser and I, and we have more. There are more of us. I'm going to be talking about, well, I'm not actually, Fraser is going to be talking about why develop analytical leadership skills. So why would you want to do that? And I will be giving a program overview over the what is going to be covered in the 4 main sessions, and then we're going to be finishing on how you can help, how you can support your person in that process. So Ali, would you kindly give us an update on the Southwest Decision Support Network and how and why are we here today? How did all this happen?
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, absolutely fine. So really nice to see you all here today. I'm Ali Loftus-Hills. I'm Head of Improvement Delivery in the Southwest region. I do know some of you. I've met you before. I know I've been chatting with some of you as part of setting this up. So welcome, and really excited to be able to work with the strategy unit and the Midlands Decision Support Network to be putting on the leadership training program over the next few months. I just thought it'd be helpful to sort of just position this in relation to some work that we've been doing, and it has been with the Midlands over the last, it's really about, it's almost a year now that we've been doing this. Rachel, can I just share, I just want to set up just a few slides. How long have I got? Because I can nuance this to depending on, have I got about 5 minutes?
Perfect.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to just talk a little bit about this piece of work and then how we've sort of gone about.
Right.
And if any of you would like me to talk about this in a little bit more detail, because we are starting to do lots of sort of sessions about the Southwest Decision Support Network. But just to frame this briefly, when the Integrating Care and ICS Design Framework documents were published, in response to the fact that they are looking at the fact that ICSs are required to have cross-system intelligence functions, we started to think about, okay, they've got quite specific things there in terms of what is needed in the ICS intelligence functions. How can we regionally support this? What could we be doing? And Mark Cook, who's our Director of Strategy and Transformation, was working with Peter Silsbury, who leads the strategy unit, and was looking at the model that they have in the Midlands. And what they have is, and it's about 3-4 years old now, is that right, Rachel? 3 years old, the Decision Support Network? About that? Right. Yeah. A sort of setup where they have the intelligence, what they were calling, I think, decision units in each one of the ICSs. And those 11 across the Midlands would then be networked. And I mean, it's a lot more complicated than that. And they do a lot, and they link, obviously, work really closely with the strategy unit. But what we did is we asked them and commissioned them to come and work with us back in January this year. And I'll just really briefly sort of just rattle through. Basically, what we did is say, would this model work within the Southwest? So we did a stakeholder mapping exercise. We spoke to analysts. We spoke to people that the sort of leads within the systems of intelligence functions. We talked to people within public health, people within NHS England, really to sort of see what the appetite was. And there's three. Sorry, did somebody want to come in? No. Okay. There's three big sort of component parts to this. There's training and development. There's knowledge exchange and how you make sure that people know what each other's doing, and you create communities of practice and share learning and open code and all the great principles that they sort of work to in terms of sharing. And then there's regional at-scale analytical pieces of work, trying to answer important strategic and operational questions, and that can be done maybe once and at a bigger scale than a lot of people are doing. So those are the sort of three key areas. And we were asking around, what would be helpful. So we then held a regional design workshop on the 5th of May. And from there, it was agreed, yep, it would be fantastic to do this. The shape of it could be this, and these are some of the things that we could put on. And I can provide you with some of it is a little bit organic at the moment in terms of how we're doing it and how we're developing it, but it's definitely an appetite to link up better, do more, coordinate better, collaborate more. And so I've got all the findings of the interviews and then from the workshop, and what we then agreed to develop, which was, where we can support decision making at system level by strengthening cross-system intelligence functions, with those sort of three key areas. So to you, in terms of what where it all sort of leads and funnels into this leadership training, two of the key things that I'll stop sharing, the two of the key things that came out of the interviews were a real appetite for analysts to be doing more around leadership, around how they, can connect better with those who are going to utilize their analytics and intelligence, and Storytel, which I'm sure Fraser and Rachel will be talking a bit more about in terms of why doing this. And then on the flip side, a lot of the sort of leaders saying, we really like to understand more how we utilize intelligence in our decision making. So we're also simultaneously we're putting on some training, a 2-day residential with some of the senior leads across the whole region, which will be running at the end of November. So we sort of heard that and thought, okay, what can we do? And over time, what we really love to do is get our own fantastic team that can be putting on this training. So that's why we want to work really closely with Rachel and Fraser and Simon Bourne, who I've been working with for the last year, to learn and to then start creating and developing you know, our own sort of Southwest training, but you know, continuing our links obviously with the network, because there's a network of networks, isn't it? Which is what we really want to do, and Rachel talk more about that. So that's where it is, where we are at the moment. If you want to know more about the decision support network in the Southwest, I'm really happy to pick up with any of you. I will also probably be putting on a session at some point and inviting everybody, because we're trying to set up our own sort of analytical huddle, which is similar to what Rachel runs in the Midlands. So any questions from anybody? It's a very quick canter through, and I've probably missed some key steps, but you know, if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat and I'll very happily answer them. So over to you, Rachel.
Thanks very much, Ali. I should have said, actually, if people do want to say anything, do put your hand up or pop some questions in the chat, and I'll try not and ignore them, and then realise that there's something in the chat and I should have responded to it some time ago. So yes, definitely, if you have anything to say. So yeah, thanks very much. I'll share my screen again, because it helps me think. But I do want to, if time, I would really like to talk about the Midlands Analyst Network, Ali, at the end, just to give people who are very much analysts on this call a flavour of the kind of thing we do here in the Midlands. And I'm just going to move us on. Can you all see my screen? Excellent. Yeah, so I've got, if time, I will talk a little bit about that at the end. And I'm really keen to invite you all as well to come to a huddle. And do you know what? There's one tomorrow. So if you're interested, you can come along. Okay, so we've we've talked about the Southwest Decision Support Network, and that's very interesting. And we're enjoying working with you, Ali. Excuse me. I'm now, excuse me. I blame my daughter for this cold that I have. So this is the rest of the core training team, and there's just me and Fraser here at the moment, but we have some lovely pictures of other people as well. That's Simon Bourne that Ali has just mentioned, and Charlotte gives us vital support to the session. Professor Mohammed will be talking to you about decision quality in a few weeks, and then we've got Chief Analyst Stephen Wyatt as well. So that's the core team. And that's all I'm going to be saying for now, and I'm going to hand you over to Fraser.
Thanks, Rachel. I've just popped a couple of links to bits of additional information on things that have come up in the chat. Have I managed to share my screen? You can't tell, can you? There we go. Have I managed to share my... Rachel, I have. Yeah,
Indeed, you have.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say, just spend 10 minutes or so, just saying a little bit about the origins of this program, where it came from, why we think it's important, and also to expand a little bit on the point that Ali was making about how it fits within a broader approach to working both with analysts and with decision makers. And then I'll hand back over to Rachel to talk more about the content of the program. And the origins of this program, as far as I can remember, or as far as I'm concerned, came from a piece of work that we did on population health management across the Midlands. And as part of that, we being the strategy unit, put on some specific training programs for analysts, because we knew that the role of the analyst was so important, and we thought population health management was, for all of its problems, we thought it was a good opportunity for analysts to be promoted within the decision-making process. And I kind of stood up at the start of session 1 of this analyst training program and said something to that effect, something like, oh, here's a great opportunity for analysts to, to boost the power of analysts in decision making and all the rest of it. And someone, and you might know him, it's Chris Bealey from Nottingham, basically stood up at the back of the room and started heckling me. And pretty well started saying, well, we've heard this kind of thing before and we've endlessly talked about this sort of stuff. When are we going to get cracking and really push on as a collection of analysts? And I got hold of him at the lunch break and just sort of said, oh, that was good. I enjoyed your contribution. I like a bit of fire. Could we do something together? And we kicked off various bits of work. One of which I just really like because it was sort of slightly left field. We kicked off this thing we called the Analyst Revolution. Some of you might have seen it. We did loads of videos, recordings. We did a big event. We wrote a manifesto. We were just trying to get a sense of the importance of analysis and of analysts as a profession, as a professional body, and to just like get some welly behind it. And I've just copied this off our website because I think it expressed it quite nicely at the time. Our basic premise was that health and social care systems didn't make the best use of the analytical talents and resources that they've got. That as far as we could tell, we just kept finding frustrated, de-skilled, bored analysts and also decision makers who really didn't know how to make good use of analysis. So that was a starting premise for us. We've subsequently developed that out. As the strategy unit, we've kind of adopted this as a bit of a mission. And Ali mentioned Peter Spilsbury, who some of you will know, our director. Again, I just took a quote from something he wrote on our website, again, which just explains where we're coming from, I think. And he says part of the strategy unit mission is to improve the use of analysis in decision making. And then this is a very Peter line. Current use is, to employ a euphemism, variable, by which he just means just awful. I mean, there is so much headroom for improvement that we're just so keen to push on this. And now we've got a particular means of doing it. So as the strategy unit, we're animating this thing called the Midlands Decision Support Network. We're behind it. A load of our staff are working on it, pretty well full time to get this thing up and running. We've got, as Ali said, this network across the 11 ICSs. So we've got a route to doing this. And through the education and training program that Rachel runs, we've been able to develop and run training programs to try and address that mission. One of which has been this one, and I just want to say a little bit more about that now. The basic premise of, both the strategy unit and the Midlands Decision Support Network is pretty much this. If you boiled our theory of change, you'd get to something like this, which is that better decision making ought to tend towards better outcomes. And we'd probably say that's fairly uncontroversial. But if we zeroed in on this thing called better decision making, there are important component parts of it. And again, Ali has hinted at that, in that we would see some work to be done on the supply side of better use of analysis. So people producing better analysis, better evaluation, better evidence, whatever it would be. But there's some work to be done on the supply side. But we would probably say the major constraints are on the demand side. So this is decision makers' understanding of analysis and demand for intelligent analysis. But even though we probably say the limiting factors are on that side of the equation, we think the real magic is likely to be in between the supply and the demand side. So I wanted to say something about that, but I wanted to abandon the boring language of supply and demand side because it's just turgid economic speak. So I wanted to try and find some way of illustrating with a little bit more depth what we mean when we say we want to address the supply and demand side. And I hope this doesn't switch anyone off too badly, but the philosophy I've gone for is Taoism. So I'm going to talk less about supply and demand and a bit more about yin and yang. And the reason why I want to talk about it in these terms is because we're not just interested in addressing the supply side, and we're not just interested in addressing the demand side, and we're not even particularly interested in just addressing them together. We're interested in approaches from the supply side, from analysis, affecting the demand side, decision makers, and we're interested in infecting decision makers with some of the disciplines from analysis. So I'll just say a little bit more about that using the yin and yang as a framework for doing it. So I'll say something about our work with analysts to refine their talents and to increase their role in decision making, and also something about what we're doing with leaders as well to help them make better use of your talents. So on the leadership side, in the sort of main body of the yang, we've got the program that Ali mentioned, Decision Quality for Leaders. We've run it in multiple different formats, in multiple different ways, and again, we'll be doing it as a residential in Taunton later on this month for leaders from within your systems. But basically what we're doing here is taking leaders through a process to better understand decision quality and decision making. Our basic premise here is that making decisions is absolutely core to what they do, but very, very few leaders have trained in decision making. Very few of them could say what better or worse decision making would mean. And so how then do they think about the quality of their decision making, and how then do they improve as decision makers? So the program we've got there works through all of those things and hopefully leaves people better able to take strategic decisions. So that's kind of our mainstream decision-making leadership program. We've also got something in the racks though, where our colleague Mohammed, who Rachel mentioned, is also developing a sort of short course on analytical thinking for leaders. So core analytical concepts that we might want leaders to have. This might be things like regression to the mean, for example, or better understanding variation. But you see, we're particularly interested in taking things from analytical disciplines and giving it to leaders. But on the reverse side, the work we're doing for analysts and with analysts, we've got a technical training program, again, which Rachel oversees. And if you look on the Decision Support Network website, you'll find out a whole load more about the things that we're doing. But we are addressing a set of technical demands and technical skills. But of course, we're interested in bringing over leadership disciplines for analysts as well. And that's where this program comes in. So that's how we see this. We see this program as taking leadership disciplines and combining it with analytical disciplines. So there's a very particular flavour to the material that we'll cover and the way we'll cover it with you. So hopefully you see it kind of fits together as something of a whole. I mean, the final point I wanted to make was when we began this work with the analyst revolution and people shouting at me in sort of training workshops, we were kind of scratching around for allies. We were really trying to find people who would want to band together with us to do this kind of thing, and we did find some. We found some great people. NHSR community is obviously one, AFRA is obviously another. We found many sort of people about the place, but there was no coherent articulation of the agenda that we were talking about, apart from us writing manifestos. But even that was just a bit of theatre. That wasn't serious. But now we've got the Goldacre Review, and whatever you think of it, some people love it, some people haven't yet reached the end of it. It's given us a coherent articulation of exactly the agenda that we're pursuing through this program. So I hope you see that a lot of what we cover is coherent with that, is helping you, is helping others, is helping systems to practically implement some of the agenda that that Goldacre and others talked about. That's that for me, Rachel. Now I can't remember in our rehearsal what we did now. So am I required to
Don't touch
section
anything. Don't do anything. Just I'm going to see if this works, and if it doesn't, these are a very, very forgiving audience.
Okay.
So if I request control, I'm hoping it'll just start here.
I've allowed you control.
Yeah, I've got a black box which feels like it should have something in it. But I'm being patient. I'm being cool, calm. I'm being a bit chill. Okay, now I'm not.
Okay. Also, tell me if you want me to press down, I can press down. Or stop. I could stop.
You click something, and I'll if it doesn't work, I'll now this is fine. Now this
Okay.
is good. Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Fraser. The yin and the yang of analysts and decision makers. It all makes perfect sense to me anyway. Okay, so back to the this course. So we've mentioned a couple of times that we've been running this for a few years, not many, 2 or 3 years. We've had several iterations of it, and we think we've learned a lot already. Anyway, so what will our trainees learn? What will you learn? What will your team members learn if after they've completed this course? Well, as we talked about, developing the strong analytical teams, improving the use of data and maximising the impact requires analysts to be working more closely with decision makers. And that is a key focus, a key thread, if you like, for the entire course. And those relationships, developing the skills of analysts in order so that those conversations, that communication is more effective, is really key. So what will they learn? What will you learn? You will learn. You will learn what it's like, what we mean by an analytical leader. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you are or you're going to be an analytical leader anytime soon, but there'll be facets of your work that will come under that heading very nicely. And you're going to be learning how to lead in and in a high performing team. And you're going to be learning how to create networks within organizations and systems. So we cover the key components of systems thinking and working in complex systems. And we really want to focus as well on the role of analysts in decision making and in health and care. And it's good to, I know we've got quite a lot of NHS analysts here, which is great. I haven't closely inspected the organisations that you're from. I'm looking forward to finding out more about where everybody's from. But I know we've got local authority people too, which is excellent because it's good to have that balance. My background is both. So I cover both of those, most recently local authority. I was a public health epidemiologist for a few years.
Rachel,
Okay.
I think I'm your down key. So if you use the word down, then I will take that as a signal to.
Can I say next?
Your mouse is moving around as well, Rachel. I don't know if that's deliberate, just so that you know that it's
my mouse.
your RC. You've got your initials, and then the mouse is moving around on the screen all the time.
So
I don't know if you can see it, but
oh,
we
right,
can.
okay.
So yeah, it's fine. It's not a big deal, but I was just letting you know in case you didn't know it was there.
Have I put my
Your mouse away.
Put my mouse away. I won't say that. I'm so glad we're not recording this. Okay, great. So this is the lineup. So what we have today is a introduction session for the line managers, and of course analysts trainees are here as well. And that will be followed next week by the first session, which is on Wednesday. That's the 9th, and that's all of the other sessions here are between 9:30 and 4 o'clock. And session 2 is about technical sources of power on the 9th of December. The third session is around decision making as an opportunity for influence. And the final session here is about influencing the system. And those sessions, although, well, they're 9:30 till 4, and it sounds like a long day. Had this conversation with Ali. She said that's a long day. But we've been doing this for a while now, and we give you plenty of breaks, changes in activity, get a nice long lunch. We even make you go walking from time to time. So thanks, Louis. So hopefully you'll find it a nice way to spend the day as opposed to just sort of interacting with your computer screen non-stop. And then we have the celebration event, which is date to be decided. So that'll just be a short event, and that is where we come back together and reflect on what we've learned. So if we just go to the next slide, Fraser. I'll let go of my mouse. So this one is about, you can just click them all on. Actually, I think it's just probably just one. Yeah, so this one is about, which starts next week. This is about developing a shared understanding of analytical leadership. You'll get to know your fellow trainees and more than you already do at the moment. I don't know who knows who at the moment. And you will gain an insight into one another's context and history, recognizing what's shaped where you are now. And we're going to be exploring differences and think about how to work effectively with a broad range of people. And part of that process is to complete your DISC profiles, and most of you have done that, which is excellent. So we can have a look at those, what that might mean, and how we compare with the group as a whole, for example. Okay, next. Then we're moving on to technical sources of power. And we've got Stephen Wyatt will be joining us for that session for some of the problem structuring tools. And we've got a few weeks between the first session and the second session, this one. So I'm thinking we need to be giving you plenty of homework. Oops, maybe not, but I certainly would want us to not lose the impetus and the sort of continuity of the training that we will start next week. We'll certainly be recapping on what we learned in the first session, so you won't miss out on any of that. And in the session, we're going to be introducing different tools and frameworks which we can use to increase our power. Going to be exploring how analysts can use their technical skills for influence. Very, very important, very much more powerful than I think most people realize. And we're going to be considering what we mean by responsible analytical leadership. Okay, next slide. S'il vous plaît. So the session in focus, the focus in session 3 is on decision quality, and it's about increasing awareness and learning the skills to have more influence within the system. And this includes presenting analytical results. And I think Fraser does a very interesting session as part of that one, which I found enjoyable last time, a couple of times ago. And is in fact presenting analytical results and opportunity for influence. Session 4, if you could just click on to the next one. So this is building on influencing the system. The final session builds on skills, knowledge and approaches to influence the system, to introduce complexity to analysts and systems thinking, and to think about how you can increase influence and impact as an analytical leader. And as the last day of training, we're going to reflect on the programme as a whole and consider how to apply it going forwards. Okay, next slide. And then we have, very exciting, we have the end of programme celebration event. Now this is where we can make commitments to change, so we can learn from with the support of our line managers, of course, and we can reflect on the learning journey so far. What have you learned? What has been learned so far? And it is the start of a process as well. We all want to learn all the time. This is not, it doesn't stop there. We want to, at this point, we want to develop the connections we've made with other people on this training. So we'll be looking back and we'll be looking to see how we can develop those networks, effective networks, and learn from each other going forward. And we will proudly display certificates of achievement and tell everybody about the wonderful training. Okay, next slide. I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is essentially to say, I think we include this somewhere else, and we'll certainly cover it. I'll just keep my mouse still. We'll certainly cover it on the first day. So this is about our contract. This is about how much the commitment we have to you and what we would like you to do for us to make this the most successful training program that it can be for you and your team members, actually. Next slide, please. So this is directed at line managers. So there's just one slide. It's quite simple, really. How can you help your team member? Essentially, it's around being a sponsor. So trainees have said multiple times that they benefit from the training much more with the backing of somebody in their organisation. And we found that if we include line managers or another sponsor throughout the process, then that has a very positive effect on both, in fact. The role of the sponsor is to provide encouragement and support to participants, but also be thinking about, and this is really important, about how they can apply their learning in the local context. Specifically, that's helping, encouraging and enabling the participant to attend sessions, meeting the team member regularly throughout the programme to discuss those learning objectives, always looking for those opportunities to apply them, and support the participant in finding, as I said, those opportunities to share their learning, test their skills and hone their abilities as leaders, and also share their skills and what they've learned with others. So next slide, please. And here we have the opportunity, if anybody has got any questions. Shall I just pick on people? Wouldn't that be awful? I won't do that. I'm not like that. Well, that's fine. I'm just waiting to see if anyone got any. I think nobody's got any questions because we've just been providing so much information, Ali. I think you know it's all there. It's all. So there's a couple of other things I would like to say. We haven't yet got a platform or worked out how we can sort of share resources with you. For example, with other cohorts, we have created a Teams channel and people have talked on the Teams channel, and we've put files there because sometimes files are too big. So we'll be in contact about that soon when we work that out.
Yeah, does that work, Rachel, in terms of different organisational permissions and so forth? Do you get around that? Because that's one thing we find, you've got to be on different parts of your teams to access different channels, but we can discuss that and see what's going to work. But if anybody who's on the call has had issues with that, please just flag it so that we're aware.
Yeah, we've had like 100% success in one cohort, and then another cohort where 2 or 3 people couldn't easily access. So I suppose I would prefer a different option, but I think that's maybe the one that we go with. But we will make sure that everybody can have access, and if they don't, then we'll make sure that we can share things in a different way, and that's not a problem at all.
Okay.
So the dates that mentioned before, they have been shared, but we haven't sent you a Teams invite to those dates. So after today, I will send that to you. I think we've got a full house now, haven't we, Ali, of all
Yep.
of the analysts who are coming on the training, which is fantastic. I think I counted 25. Does that feel about right?
Yep.
Okay, well that's great. What a great size to start a network. I don't know what analyst network you have down there at the moment. I see he was down there.
Yeah.
But
there are networks. There's Sword and there's other groups that, well, that might be something that you pick up when you all come together. But it might be a nice way of getting to know other analysts across the region. Well, it will be. That will be part of the process, won't it? Which will be great.
Feedback from other cohorts has definitely been one of the a real positive to come from it is just talking to other analysts, because you don't really get to do that so much in your own teams. You talk to kind of talk to the same people, or those people that you link with in other teams and departments. I don't know, it feels like people really enjoyed that part of it. So I hope you I know, yeah, I hope you do too.
It's kind of, sorry, Rachel, I was going to say,
okay.
It's absolutely squarely at the center of our method for, I was going to say teaching, we need a better, of development really, is that we regard our job really as providing some really good input, some really good frameworks, some stimulation and all the rest of it. But we know that the richness of experience, of expertise, of context, of, yada, 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 is in the room. It's between participants. So we couldn't record this whole program and put it on YouTube and it have the same effect. It would have like a tenth of the effect. It's all about the interaction between participants and between participants and their line manager.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely fundamental that, I mean, you'll see on day one, and maybe some of you'll hate it, and I know it's the kind of thing that make me shrivel slightly as well, a bit of just getting to know each other ahead of getting into some of the content that we'll go through together as well. So the connections we build are fundamental.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So if I'm allowed to, there's just a couple of extra things I would just want to mention. And I think I've got a couple of slides. It disappeared. Oh well. Not to worry. I will just share. I share my slides because I have just a couple of things I would just like to mention. So I mentioned before about the Midlands Analysts Network. So in the Midlands we have about, we started in 2020 and grew quite quickly because of COVID, and people really had an appetite for wanting to connect with others, especially with the push into working from home and so forth. So we've got about 700 members, and we have fortnightly huddles, and we cover like online huddles that just last an hour. They cover a huge range of topics, and we have a lot of people come, sort of like between 50 and 100 each time, and they're pretty informal, and people really seem to like them. They just, because they can, some of the topics are Midlands related or local, but often they're not actually. So sometimes we do get local systems sharing their work, which is great. For example, tomorrow we've got a colleague from OHID, and she's going to be talking about the National Pub Health Profile in relation to East and West Midlands. So she's done some work, and she tells me she has a compelling story. So I, for one, think that is something to come and watch. So I was just going to say, if anybody wanted, although it's Midlands based, we have quite a few people who aren't in the Midlands who are part of it. If you do want to come along, by all means, you're very welcome. So I might just send you an invite, and then you can come along. And then the other thing is, and you can think, you might come along and think, well, that's how not to do it, and that's fine. As long as you can get something from it, that's absolutely fine. And then the other thing I just want to mention briefly is one of the things we do as a decision support network is hello Eddie, is every 2 years, every year we run Insight Festival, which is an online festival of, as you can see here, of events. The theme of this year is the science and craft of decision making. Now, this is open and accessible to anybody. You might have seen an advert for it already. And I would recommend you just take a look at some of the events that we're putting on this year. Some of them are very analyst focused. That's possibly the wrong term, but there are one or two things like around system dynamics, for example, that are not just relevant for the subject matter, but also from the technical approaches that might be interesting. Just take a look, get yourself registered if you're interested in any of those. And I think, Ali and Fraser, I think that is all I've to share today. So if there's no other questions or comments, then I think, lovely people, we can finish now. Look forward to seeing you again, or some of you again, next week at the first session. And line managers, those of you who are here today, thank you again for coming. Really appreciate it. It was quite short notice for some people. I definitely sent some invites out this morning, so really appreciate you coming along. And we might invite you back for the celebration event as well. So thanks very much, everybody, and I'm gonna close this down now.
Thanks very much, Rachel. Nice
Okay,
to see
no
you all.
problem.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.